call it woke, right? Is college woke? And this is something that people have been talking about for many years. And free speech is dead on campus. This is not a new issue. It goes back many, many years. But in recent years, higher education has come under incredible scrutiny, right? For censoring speech, or for being students being too sensitive and stuff like that. And so, kind of like being on the quad during Alabama game days, I kind of approach to a degree being a university grad student in 2022 as kind of a sociological expedition, right? To see if it's true. And obviously my sample size is very small because I'm just at one, Southern university. And of course the South is known for not being as forward thinking as the rest of the country, most times. But nevertheless, I thought I would, check it out, and just to see if college was so-called woke. And, first off, before I really talk about this, is that we got to have this idea that language, right, really does create a feeling. And so this term woke, right, started as like woke means that, you're not trying to apply blanket terms to someone's experience. You're trying to like understand where they're coming from. You're trying to empathize with them. That's all it is. It's another word for empathy, right? Like woke. Okay. But in recent years, of course, like the way it is, the language is weaponized. So people have come to like take the idea of woke to mean any movement in society that tries to attain progress really, really quickly. Okay. Without, I guess, checking across the hall to make sure if it's okay with the other party, right? So, they want immediately, Target or whatever, they're going to make states have unisex bathrooms for everybody. It doesn't matter what gender you were born with, whatever gender you're feeling in the moment, you can just use that bathroom, and so on and so forth, right? And so they are using this term now as something that is very negative, to the point where it's almost been subtracted, and nobody who really is even a proponent of what woke used to be is using it anymore. Okay. So, so with that being said, okay, like on college campuses, especially at the campus I'm at, have I experienced any incidents of wokeism, okay, as defined by the opponents of it? Is free speech whatever free speech is it being stifled on campus? Are kids not allowed to speak their mind? Are kids being too sensitive? I haven't really noticed it so far, but as I said, it's a small sample size, right? I've only been there a few weeks. Okay. I will say that, like, I was in class the other day, and a student did use the term trigger warning in a way that was not ironic, but genuinely tried to use it in a way. So, the term trigger warning, right, is what we just basically used to call a warning. Okay. I'm going to talk about some stuff you may not feel comfortable with, right? Like if you go to an R-rated movie, okay, it's rated R. So therefore there may be some stuff in there that I don't want to see with my parents. Okay. So a few years ago, colleges started to talk like about, should we put trigger warnings on syllabi? Should we tell students that, the Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter is going to involve some references to adultery? I don't know. Or this book is going to, have references to suicide. So if you know somebody who's experienced suicide in the past, you may not want to read this book or take this class or something like that, right? And so, like, I understand why trigger warnings exist, totally. However, in college, okay, there is like such a thing still as personal responsibility, okay? You as a student should be able to look into the material that's going to be covered in a class before you decide to take it, okay? And so trigger warnings to me have like a very, very narrow usage. I'm not saying that we should scrap them completely, but they do have this tendency toward a very slippery slope, right? Where kids are only going to learn what they want to learn, okay? And they're not going to be challenged. And that's not what college should be, okay? So I did have a classmate the other day use the term trigger warning to say, you know, should we tell other students who are going to peer review our paper that our paper has some suicide in it, okay? And so I understood what they were asking, and maybe so, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not really here to make that judgment. But that is an example, though, of how speech was entertained. The idea of stifling speech was entertained with a little bit in a college classroom so far, right? Another idea, right? Pronouns, okay? This whole thing with pronouns. Now people are being asked to identify by pronouns, okay? And the people who are against the term woke, once again, will have you believe that university campuses are now mandating that people say what pronouns they are, okay? I have not personally experienced this in college yet. I have experienced being asked for pronouns, but it is not required that I give them, okay? They don't tell me that it's not required, but it's just like, the box, right, on the form on the internet. It doesn't have that little red star next to it, meaning it's not required, okay? I will say, though, that working in the Writing Center and not knowing anybody on campus, I have appointments and students walk in to see me, and I have information about them on a form. However, 3 students may walk in at the same time, a boy, a girl, another boy, right? And kids are named very interesting things these days. They're named, female names when they're a male and vice versa. So seeing pronouns on the check-in sheet helps me identify, okay, there's only, one boy right here, and I see that their pronouns are he, him, right? So I'm looking at a boy right in front of me in a room of, 3 girls, right? So that must be my appointment, right? So I go out and meet them, and there's no awkwardness or anything like that, okay? So, yeah, like a good example of this was the other day I actually had a client that I was going to meet with in the Writing Center to work on their paper. And their writing form said, right, well, I can't say their name, but it was the name of a very popular contestant on American Idol from a few years ago. And I assumed that that contestant was a man, so this also must be a man. It wasn't. It wasn't. They walked in and it was a female. And the way that I knew that is because they identified with, she, her, right? So there it is. So the pronouns actually help me. I actually kind of like them. The idea now that people are being encouraged to write down their pronouns, right? But, they're not required to, okay? So, you can stop saying that they are.